And welcome again, everybody. 7:08. It's a huge panel this morning. The Godfather's just rolled on in. Wisp is in here. Chris Fagan joins us for the first time. Morning to you, Chris.
Morning, Hamish.
Great to have you here. Great to have
What
a coach
are you doing
on.
here, Fagan?
First time we've ever had a coach sitting on the panel.
I asked myself that question as I got in the cab this morning at 6:15.
No, we love you, mate. First year coach, we love you.
Everyone else has gone home, I assume.
They went back last night. Dave Noble and our CEO, we've got a list management meeting on down here this morning at 8 o'clock, so that's the reason I stayed down. Very important decisions to be made.
What sort of decisions will you be making this morning?
Just talking about our list and players we might be interested in going after, Tim.
Is there a few out there?
Well, there are a few we'd like to get. Doesn't mean we'll get them.
About one that you've had a little bit of trouble talking about recently, and that's Charlie Cameron.
Well,
we can go straight to the point, do you not?
My answer to that will be, I've probably said enough about that. I'm not going to say anymore.
You saw a bit of trouble talking about that, didn't you?
Well, I did, yeah. And I sort of gave a hypothetical answer to a question and got into a little bit of trouble, but I best leave that one alone.
Well, you might get fined by the AFL for making a false statement about news out there.
Maybe.
Were you moved enough to contact Don Pike? He was clearly irritated by what you said.
No, I didn't contact him. No.
Okay. But Mike, how could you respond otherwise? If you're asked a hypothetical question, surely you have to give a hypothetical answer.
I didn't say Chris was in the wrong.
But I'm asking you as a journo.
That's the most animated Pike has been at a press conference this year, and he clearly took offence, didn't he? Did you see it?
I didn't see the press conference. I heard about it. I just thought that I wasn't sure that he listened to what I actually said, so maybe he was ill-advised. I'm not sure.
Well, on the draft, Chris, the burning question, I listened to Hamish and Gary early on, the question about winning next week and what's at stake. Now, just from your mouth, is it clearly and unequivocally a win that you want next Saturday?
Yeah, we're trying to win. We're trying to build that winning culture at the club, and so that's more important to us than losing and getting the first draft pick.
The list management group will say that too, will they?
Oh, they'd probably like to have the first pick, but they're all on board with what we're trying to do, and from our perspective, it's so important that we finish off the season with a win, and we've played, really strong footy for the last 10 or 12 weeks, and we don't want to leave the season on a sour note.
I'm going to go all the way back to Andrew Demetrio. He said once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times, he said that early draft picks are not the panacea to success. I've gone back and I've looked at the draft since 2010. You talk about getting the first draft pick. I wouldn't rate the first draft pick the best pick out of all of those drafts, except for one, since 2010. So you don't necessarily have to have the first draft pick.
It was interesting for us last year. We had pick 3, and we took Hugh McCluggage. If we had had pick 1, we would have taken Hugh McCluggage. Yep. So that's sort of how it rolls sometimes.
But Gary, it's relevant in the pre-season draft. It's Josh Kelly on the table.
I don't think it's a really nice bargaining tool to have in your back pocket if you've got players out of contract, that you're trying to negotiate or deal with, and you can say, well, the option is there to push you through the pre-season draft. That doesn't happen often because
it's rare that it happens.
Generally, but it's nice to have in your back pocket.
No, I agree with that.
Give us a call anytime if you've got a question for the Godfather or Chris Fagan or Gaz or Tim, anytime throughout the morning. Chris, how have you rated the Lions' performance this year? There seems to be, and particularly from our callers and those that are following the Lions, a really positive vibe over the last couple of months as to how the young players at the Lions are developing.
Yeah, the second half of the season since the bye has definitely been better for us than the first part. There's a real hunger in the group to improve. I'm actually really proud of the way they finished off the season, because it's not easy when you're down near the bottom to stay motivated, but our group has. And I noticed Dane Zorko last week did some interview where he said that he wished the season wasn't finishing. So that's a good sign. That's what you want to try and create as a coach, and I think our boys will go into the pre-season with a lot of optimism. Still a lot of work to do, but feeling really positive about the future.
They're in great shape, folks, no doubt about it. But let's go way back. You walked into a footy club that was on its knees in lots of ways. There was talk about assistants and the AFL having to put people up there. It was a basket case. What is the thing you do the first thing when you get your feet under the desk to say, right, I need to get this right before we can start to, this is almost a year down the track, we are now assessing Brisbane and saying they're in great shape. But when you got there, they weren't. So what was it? The first thing you did when you got your feet under the desk and said, I need to sort this out?
Yeah, probably to start with, things are never as bad as they seem sometimes either. But the first thing I did was I spoke to each player individually, and some that took half an hour, some that took an hour and a half, and it took me 2 or 3 weeks to do it. But I asked all of them 3 questions. What was working well at the club, what needed to improve, and if you were the senior coach, what would be the 2 or 3 things you'd focus in on, because I wanted them to feel like that they were empowered and that they had some buy-in. So chatted to all of them. Some good trends emerged. Some of them I'd sort of predicted, some of them I hadn't, and from there we put a lot of their recommendations in place, and I think we got the buy-in, and away they went. But I thought that was the most important thing to begin with.
So to get them, like say Tom Rockley, for example, he's your captain. He's the bloke who sets the culture of that footy club. And again, from the outside, and we're not there, it looked like there was a disconnect between he and the coach, or whatever the case may be. He bought in. So that sort of symptomatic of the whole group, and was that one of your great challenges?
Yeah, Tommy was. I mean, I probably had 3 conversations with Tommy. I had one with everybody else, but he was the first person I spoke to. I met him at his manager's office down here when I first got the job. And
different perception that you had going into what you dealt with?
Well, I'd heard a lot of things about him, so I went in and said to him, "Look, these are all the things I've heard, mate. I don't know whether they're true or not, but we need to chat about them." And he thought some of them were true. He thought some were a bit harsh. I walked away from that meeting thinking he's a better young man than the perception. Yep. I was hopeful that he'd stay. He did stay, and we had a few more conversations after that. But basically, he's got on the same page as us, and he took it on the chin, not getting the captaincy. He's acted like a captain anyway, and he's been really helpful to Dane Beams, and hopefully he's rebuilt his brand somewhat, that people think differently about Tom than they did this time last year.
Fags, you've been around footy a long time. You've coached in your own right. You've been an assistant at Hawthorn for a long time in a successful program too. Now you've stepped out and you're coaching in your own right. How have you assessed your own performance? I mean, we've watched you in the coach's box, and last year sitting alongside Clarko, you were almost like a little statue, and now you're as animated as anyone I've ever seen the coach's box.
Yeah, it surprised me.
How have you handled it?
Yeah, it surprised me a little bit. I mean, the cameras...
Do you think you'd defy the trend?
I thought I'd be calmer than I am.
I remember Dennis Fagan saying to me, he said, "Look, in the coach's box, you should just look like you're there just catching a bus," and that's much easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, it is much easier said than done. And most of the time, you do sit there and you're pretty calm, but those cameras, they're on you all the time, so they get you from time to time. I guess you're so connected to your players, and the result, the passion comes out every now and then, and to a degree, I'm sort of happy for me that it does. It shows your players how much you care, in a sense.
Do you try and control it?
I'd say to myself before every game today, I'm going to be really controlled and not lose it. I was pretty good yesterday. I think I might have had 1 or 2 moments, but I know it just goes to show when you're so invested that every now and then it bubbles over.
Chris, every time I see Dane Beams up close, I think this bloke's a top 20 player in the competition. He's had a brilliant season, hasn't he?
He has. I mean, it's been a little bit injury interrupted. He had a quad injury, and he got Mumford cleaned him up and hurt his shoulder a few weeks ago, and he's been playing under a little bit of adversity and still playing at the high level that he is. He's a terrific player. I didn't realise how good he was either. I remember him from his Collingwood days, and he was one of a good pack of midfielders that were there, but his leadership, his ability to win the footy, kick goals, he can do most things.
He went back to Brisbane under the go-home factor. When you sit down to do your list management meeting this morning, will you factor that in, or will you pick the best player in the draft regardless of where he's from, or will you say it's probably safer if there's a good local kid? Yeah,
look, I think our recruiters look closely at that potential go-home factor. I think it's relevant. That's probably why, if you look at our list, there's a lot of Queenslanders, there's a lot of big country boys, because they don't have a choice. They've got to move away from home. So our sports psych will be involved in those sorts of decisions, but certainly we won't want to be taking someone who's a high risk of wanting to return home, which is an understandable thing for young people. We can't ignore it. It's normal. I mean, I felt a bit homesick when I moved to Brisbane, so I sort of understand what that feels like. We'll put some work into that.
Lindsay's in Somerville. Thanks for holding on, Lindsay. You got Chris Fagan here. You're a Lions fan?
I've been a Lions fan for a long time. Mike might remember me from the Paul Rouge thing a long time ago, Mike.
Yes, I do, Lindsay.
But Chris, you've done a fabulous job, mate. Never have I felt such confidence. I travel a lot overseas. I never miss your press conference. I listen to every word of it. I think you've done a great job. I feel really confident about the future, and thanks for saving us, mate.
Well, thanks for that feedback. I'm glad I came in this morning. I feel really good now.
I tell you what, you got up early enough to plant that call.
I did.
Fags, what about your career path? I know I'm trying to get the timing right so we don't... But you were a coach back in Tassie, obviously, and then you came to the Demons under Nilo, and then at Clarko. Was coaching always in the back of your mind? I remember always throwing your name up when these discussions went on, years ago, and you always batted them away, saying, no. Now, whether or not you were, I don't know what you were doing then, but did you have it in the back of your mind that maybe this was somewhere where you could end up?
Probably when I was younger, I always wanted to coach, but I didn't think I'd get the opportunity because I don't have an AFL playing background. I think that sort of helps. So I'd sort of resign myself to the fact that I'll probably be a footy manager or an assistant coach for the rest of my career. And then this opportunity popped up out of the blue.
Was it the first time you've been asked?
Yeah.
You really?
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah, Greg Swan rang me. He said, you a coach or a footy manager? I said, deep down I'm a coach, mate. He said, do you want to get involved in our process? And I said, I'd love to. So sort of how it rolled.
Chris, Mickey Malthouse has always said that he favours coaches or potential coaches, those who have had the control of their own team. You did that. How important is it to be in charge of a team?
I think it's of great benefit. If you can do it that way, but I sort of think with the coaching pathway, good coaches come from all different angles. So there's been quite a few premiership coaches who haven't coached their own team prior to starting a senior coaching role in the AFL, and some of them have coached their own team. For me, it's probably a good thing that I have, but I don't think it's essential, but if you can do it, it's a great thing.
Brendan, I'm not sure whether this is a Clarkoism or not. We're going to play two pieces of audio. One is Brendan Bolton, one is you. I want to ask you, where did you both steal it from, or did Brendan Bolton steal it from you?
Just a little bit of emotional nourishment that they deserve for their efforts over the course of the year. So that's the biggest takeaway, some emotional nourishment.
The attitudes haven't dropped at any stage, but you know that at some point in time you need to get some emotional nourishment for the group, and they were able to get that tonight.
The good news is you were round 12
Yes.
and Bolts was this weekend.
He copied me.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
And you both copied Clarko, or
I don't know whether Clarko's ever
does
said
he ever use that?
I haven't heard him
He would
say
have had
that.
an
He never used it.
for it.
I'll tell you who did use it. Lee Matthews used it a long time ago. That's where
He
I
still
remember it
uses
from.
it on the broadcast.
Yeah.
It stuck in your mind then.
It did, yeah.
I like it though.
Just the SMSs are echoing Lindsay's views that you are doing an amazing job there. So congratulations on that. Give us one player that we haven't seen a lot of that we can get excited about from a Lions perspective in 2018 and beyond.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. There's a young fella by the name of Sam Skinner who made his debut a couple of weeks ago against the West Coast. Played up forward. He was about to make his debut last year and he wrecked his knee. So he's had the one game. He's a real competitor and really hopeful that he'll step up next year.
Okay. Folks, can the Tigers win the flag this year?
They're a chance. They play good team footy, don't they? They've got a good system. They're able to keep the ball in their forward line with all those little quick guys that they've got. They've got good defenders. They're a chance. I think it's a wide open race.
If you're going to be parachuted into one side, who would you like to be in charge of with whatever's left in the season to win it?
I've always been bullish about GWS. I think if they look like they're building at the right time, a lot of their players are returning. So I think if they can get their act together, they'll be hard to beat.
Folks, thank you for coming in. We're going to let you go, but it means a lot to come in to us. But for your footy club, I think it's enormous. I mean, to have a senior coach that's prepared to stay on and sell his club. You know, our show is not the highest rating show in Melbourne, but we speak to an enormous amount of your constituents and people who have influence in terms of footy, and I think it reflects magnificently on the Brisbane Lions and the job you're doing. So thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks, Gary.
Just a quick one, Chris.
Yep.
Has Tommy Rockcliffe given you a clear indication yet about 2018?
No, I haven't asked him, but the way he's acting and talking and around the footy club, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Because the expectation was he would play out this year and then it would be back to square one. But you're more optimistic than that.
He seems very happy at the moment. His wife's pregnant. He's just built a new house. I'll be hopeful that he stays.
There's just a text message that's come up, Chris. Couldn't agree more with that last caller, Lindsay. Surely there hasn't been a happier group of supporters sitting 18th on the ladder. Keep it up, Fags, and go Lions. And the text before that, never been more excited about a season than I have been in a long time. So well done.
Thank you, and I accept that on behalf of all the coaching staff and the people that work up there.
Excellent. Well done, Chris Fagan.
Thanks,
Lions and the Kangaroos to play this weekend.